Aloha. Today I'm going to show you how to fill a worm farm. So this is a brand new worm farm I just got done building, and I'm going to put all the ingredients together today to make the worm bedding, and I'm going to start filling it up, and then I'm going to let it age, get it ready for the worms that I don't have yet. So I'm going to let this age after I fill it up for maybe 2-3 weeks before I add worms to it. So before you add any bedding, you're going to need to put a layer of cardboard in there. So I just got all this cardboard here, ripped all the tape off, cleaned it up, and I layered it about 3.5 inches thick down here because this is a big bed and it's humid here all the time in Hawaii, and I don't want this to rot before it's ready. So I'll show you what this looks like inside, and then we're going to get mixing up some stuff and get that bedding going. Alrighty, you can see here stacked up all around the sides and the bottom, nice and even. About 3+ inches thick. All right, we're ready to mix up the worm farm bedding. So I've got tons of stuff from around the property. I'm just cleaning up all the old random stuff sitting around. I'm gonna mix it all into the bedding, and I'm putting a lot more stuff in than you probably need to, but I want these to be the best possible worm castings ever. So I'm going a little overboard. I'm gonna go through everything I'm putting in them, and then we'll mix it up and put it in the worm farm. I got a list here, so don't forget anything. So I'll tell you exactly what I put in here. So in this worm farm bedding for the new worm farm, I have a few kinds of mulch from around the property. I've got a few kinds of compost. I've got old worm castings. This here, I've got 2 trays of old worm castings from my Worm Farm 360. And I've got an old bag here to finish off, so I'm gonna mix those in. I've got dirt from a few different places around the property, so it'll have like a different microbial signature maybe. I've got cinder, black cinder, and I put it through a 1/4 inch mesh screen, so it's a 1/4 inch or smaller, so it's really small little pieces of cinder. Some of them are just as small as sand. It'll add some aeration, drainage, and also the small pieces they can use as grit. I've got cocoa core. This is Roots Organic cocoa core, washed multiple times, aged. I've got about 10 gallons of that going in. I've got aged goat manure from my goats. I've got aged chicken manure from my chickens. I've got lime, dolomite lime, oyster shell powder. I've got ground up coral, so coral powder. I've got some play sand. I've got a bunch of organic kelp flakes or powder, whatever I'm putting in there. I've got organic alfalfa I'm putting in there. I've got some old food scraps from laying around, you know, banana, fruit peeling, stuff like that. I've got cardboard chunks I just ripped up into pieces going in there. I've got a little bit of biochar I have sitting around, so I'm just going to throw that in there. I've got azomite rock dust, and I've got some leftover perlite I'm going to throw in there as well. So that's a lot of stuff. I'm going to let that cook for like 3 weeks before I add the worms, so they're completely safe, nothing to worry about. And I've also got some different kinds of leaves from around the property. So you can see these here. This is bamboo leaves. Alrighty, got some old compost, worm casting sand, cocoa core, another thing, old worm castings. That bucket has all the different things: kelp, oyster shell powder, lime, alfalfa, all that stuff. More cocoa core, some old perlite laying around. Here's the black cinder that I went through and sifted. You can see it's like really fine stuff. And then in here we've got different kinds of, you know, some old food scraps, some nice fresh mulch here. This is lots of carbon still need to be broke down. This is like some composted mulch to where it looks kind of like soil. Got some dirt, a couple different kinds of dirt from the property, some more dry mulch, some more composted material here, bamboo leaves, other leaves, some dry crumbly dirt, more mulch. All right, I'm gonna mix all this good stuff up, let it age, and we'll be jamming. This is actually way more stuff than I need to start that worm farm, but I don't want to have to do it later, so what I'm doing is mixing up a huge batch, 3 times more than I need, and I'm going to put all the extra in a 55-gallon tote and then leave it aside so that whenever I'm ready I can add a little bit more of this, like a layer of that, add a bunch of food scraps, a little layer, and then I don't have to mix new stuff up all the time. I'll have it ready, I'll be good for like a couple years probably, because I'll just add a little bit of this in every once in a while after the food scraps. Alrighty, I'm going to start mixing all this stuff up, and we'll take a look at it after I'm done with that. Finally done mixing it up. That was a doozy. It's a lot of stuff in here. This trailer's 3/4 full. This is a real pain to mix up with mulch and all the material. Got my workout in today. So you can kind of see the consistency, nice and crumbly. Tons and tons of organic matter in here. If you squeeze it, no water comes out, but it holds its shape, but it'll also just disintegrate. So not soaking wet, but it will stay in shape and then it'll just disintegrate again. So that's kind of what you want. You don't want too much water, you don't want it soaking wet, you don't want the worms drowning, but you do want plenty of moisture and a drainage. So there's lots of different drainage in here, tons and tons of organic matter with all the mulches and composts and manures and stuff. So it's about dark here, so I'm gonna actually park this bad boy, let it sit overnight, start cooking, and then I'm gonna throw it in the new worm farm tomorrow morning. I'll see you then. All right, we're back, finishing up this bedding for the new worm farm. So this sat here all night, and I got one more thing I actually want to add, which is 4 buckets, about 20 gallons of food scraps. So I've got random plants in here, flower stuff also, cabbage, you know, banana peels, different types of food scraps, fruit peelings, all that good stuff. Bunch of different stuff in here. So I'm gonna put all this in here, mix that up as well. This provides another great source of food for the worms. I'm just gonna dump it in this pot first, just in case there's too much water. I mean, it rained a little last night. Got some bread in here for the chickens. Don't need the bread in there, or the paper towels, which paper towels are fine, but got some mushrooms in here, zucchini, all kinds of stuff. So I just want to double check, make sure it's not full of water. All right, I'm gonna get this all mixed up and then we're ready to put it in the worm farm. Alrighty, it's all mixed up. Look at that deliciousness, a full trailer for the worms. All right, I got my new continuous flow through worm farm here underneath roof, so it stays in the shade, out of the sun, out of the rain, but there's opening on all sides, so there'll be plenty of airflow to come hit through these screens. And I've also got a 55-gallon tote here for all the extra bedding. So I've got at least twice as much bedding as I need here. I'm gonna fill this bad boy up, maybe half, 3/4, and then the rest will go in this tub. So it's right next to my worm farm with all the bedding, tons of carbon. And then I'll come in here, I'll put the compost, food scraps, banana peels, all that stuff in here. And then I'll come sprinkle a little bit of this on top once in a while and slowly build this up. And after about a year, this thing will be full and I'll start harvesting worm castings and start sprinkling them around the property and using them for compost tea. Worm castings are absolutely amazing for inoculating your compost tea with a lot of life. Alrighty, let's start loading this bad boy up. As you can see, we're filling her up. I'm going to fill all the way up a little bit past the cardboard, keeping the cardboard tucked to the sides as I fill it up. Alrighty, I'm done filling it up. It may look like it's pretty full, but it will settle over time as it sits for a few weeks and starts breaking down. And then once the worms get in here and munch through everything, it will settle again. And I'll just keep adding food scraps and layers of this until this bad boy gets all the way full and we're ready to start harvesting castings. Alrighty, the new continuous flow through worm system is full of the bedding. I'm gonna let it sit for 3-4 weeks, age, cook, and start breaking down. And then I will get some red wiggler worms and put, I'm probably gonna get like 2 or 3 pounds and put them in here so they can start breaking this down and building out a colony of 1 trillion worms. All right, I'm gonna take the rest of this and put it in this tub here where it's gonna sit until I need to add it. And it has a lid and everything. There's a couple air holes on the side so it can breathe, and that's where it's gonna sit until I need it. Alrighty, I got this all filled up with just barely enough room. This is almost filled completely to the top. I had to pat it down a little bit. And then I'll just put this lid on here. And then this will sit here, and it's right next to my worm farm, so it's super convenient, easy. And I've got a ton here. I'm gonna have enough worm food probably for a year or two where I won't have to make anything new for them. I'll just put food scraps and then this in there, and I'll be jamming. Alrighty. Got my extra container of food, got my worm farm all filled up. Gonna let this sit for a few weeks, then I'm gonna throw some worms in. I'll do an update video when I add the worms into the farm, see how everything's looking. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Aloha.